The Vatican heist. In the year 1204, while Crusader armies laid siege to Constantinople, a different kind of battle was being fought in the shadows. Vatican agents, armed with detailed intelligence and specific targeting lists, conducted one of history's most systematic knowledge theft operations. Their mission wasn't conquest or plunder in the traditional sense. They were hunting for manuscripts that posed existential threats to Christian doctrine and contained scientific knowledge that wouldn't be officially rediscovered for centuries. The Imperial Library of Constantinople housed over 120,000 manuscripts representing the accumulated wisdom of the ancient world. Greek philosophers, Roman engineers, Egyptian physicians, and Persian astronomers had documented their discoveries in texts that survived the collapse of classical civilization. This wasn't just a collection of books. It was humanity's intellectual heritage preserved in one magnificent repository. Cardinal Giovanni da Montecorvino had spent decades preparing for this moment. Vatican intelligence networks had identified which manuscripts posed the greatest dangers to church authority. They knew exactly which texts contained astronomical calculations proving heliocentrism, which documented alternative accounts of Jesus' life, and which preserved advanced scientific knowledge that contradicted official church teachings. The operation unfolded with military precision during the chaos of the siege. While Crusader armies battled Byzantine defenders, Vatican agents systematically extracted specific manuscripts according to predetermined priorities. They weren't randomly looting. They were executing a carefully planned intellectual assassination designed to eliminate knowledge that could undermine religious authority. Among their primary targets was the complete works of Aristarchus of Samos, whose mathematical calculations proving that Earth orbited the Sun were far more sophisticated than anything Copernicus would later develop. The Vatican recognized that this ancient Greek had already solved astronomical questions that wouldn't be officially answered until the Renaissance. Public access to such knowledge could shatter the Church's cosmological authority centuries before it was prepared to adapt. The agents also seized the original biography of Jesus, written by Eustace of Tiberias, a Roman historian who had documented Jesus as a political revolutionary rather than a divine figure. This contemporary account included details about Jesus' family background, education, and political activities that completely contradicted the mythological narrative essential to Christian doctrine. Such evidence could destroy the theological foundation upon which church power was built. Medical manuscripts represented another priority target. Ancient texts documenting surgical procedures, pharmaceutical formulations, and anatomical knowledge that exceeded medieval understanding were systematically confiscated. The Vatican understood that controlling healing knowledge was essential to maintaining their monopoly on miraculous cures and divine intervention. When Byzantine Emperor Isaac II demanded the return of the stolen manuscripts, Vatican officials claimed they had been destroyed during the siege. However, internal church documents reveal a different story. The texts were carefully transported to secret archives beneath the Vatican, where they remained accessible to authorized church scholars while being denied to the broader intellectual community. The cover-up intensified during the Renaissance, when scholars began actively seeking ancient Greek texts for translation and study. Vatican librarians systematically denied the existence of the stolen manuscripts while secretly using their contents to guide church policy and suppress scientific inquiry that might challenge religious authority. The Alexandria extraction. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria represents one of history's greatest intellectual tragedies, or so we've been taught. Recent archaeological evidence and previously classified documents reveal a far more sinister truth. The library wasn't destroyed by religious zealots or accidental fires. Its most valuable contents were systematically extracted by Roman agents who recognized that certain ancient knowledge was too dangerous for public access. The operation began in 391 CE, when Emperor Theodosius issued his decree, ordering the destruction of pagan temples. Roman intelligence had spent years identifying specific manuscripts in Alexandria that contained technological blueprints, mathematical formulas, and historical records threatening to imperial authority and official narratives about human development. Their primary targets included Hero of Alexandria's complete engineering works, which contained detailed instructions for building steam engines, automated machinery, and mechanical computers centuries before these technologies were supposedly invented. Roman officials understood that widespread access to such knowledge could destabilize economic and social hierarchies built on technological inequality. Another extraction priority involved historical archives documenting advanced pre-flood civilizations that possessed scientific knowledge exceeding contemporary Roman capabilities. These records included detailed accounts of global catastrophes, advanced astronomical calculations, and descriptions of technologies suggesting human civilization had previously achieved extraordinary development before experiencing cyclical destruction. The medical manuscripts stolen from Alexandria contained surgical procedures that wouldn't be rediscovered until the modern era, pharmaceutical formulations capable of curing diseases considered incurable by contemporary medicine, and anatomical knowledge demonstrating sophisticated understanding of human biology and psychology. Roman agents recruited local scholars as unwitting accomplices, convincing them that manuscripts needed protection from religious persecution by transferring them to secure Roman facilities. These scholars believed they were preserving ancient knowledge when they were actually facilitating its theft and suppression. The extracted manuscripts were transported to secret imperial archives, where they remained accessible only to government-approved scholars who used the knowledge to maintain Roman technological and military superiority. Advanced engineering, medical, and astronomical discoveries were selectively implemented while being kept from broader public awareness. When later scholars sought access to the legendary Library of Alexandria, Roman officials promoted the narrative that it had been destroyed by Christian mobs or Arab conquerors. This cover story concealed the systematic extraction while generating sympathy for the tragic loss of ancient knowledge. Archaeological excavations in the 1990s uncovered evidence that the library building had been systematically emptied rather than destroyed, with storage areas showing signs of careful removal rather than fire damage. Transport records found in Roman archives document massive manuscript shipments from Alexandria to secret facilities in Rome during the supposed period of destruction. Real quick, if you're learning something new from this video, be sure to like and drop a comment with your favorite. It helps us to spread this info to those who need to hear it most. Also, subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss what we reveal next. Trust me, there's a whole lot more hidden. Now back to it. The Mayan codex confiscation. When Spanish conquistadors invaded the Yucatan Peninsula in the 16th century, they discovered something that challenged everything they thought they knew about indigenous capabilities. Mayan libraries contained codices with astronomical calculations and historical predictions of impossible accuracy. These weren't primitive superstitions. They were sophisticated scientific documents that exceeded European knowledge by centuries. Rather than destroying these texts as claimed in official records, Spanish agents systematically confiscated the most valuable manuscripts and transported them to secret archives in Madrid. Court astronomers studied them privately, while publicly maintaining that indigenous peoples possessed only primitive knowledge. The stolen codices contained mathematical and astronomical calculations that demonstrated Mayan understanding of planetary cycles, eclipse predictions accurate to within minutes, and calendar systems incorporating cosmic cycles unknown to European science. Spanish officials recognized that acknowledging such sophistication would undermine colonial narratives about civilizing primitive peoples. Among the confiscated texts was the Jaguar Prophecy, a codex predicting future historical events with disturbing accuracy. It foretold the arrival of European diseases, the fall of indigenous empires, and specific dates for global catastrophes that later occurred exactly as predicted. Spanish authorities realized that public access to such prophecies could undermine colonial authority and reveal that indigenous peoples possessed prophetic capabilities exceeding European understanding. The most valuable stolen manuscript was the star calendar, containing astronomical calculations showing that ancient Mayans had mapped stellar positions and planetary movements with precision that wouldn't be achieved by European astronomers until the development of advanced telescopes. The calendar included predictions about cosmic events scheduled to occur centuries in the future. Pedro de Medina, the Spanish court mathematician, secretly studied the confiscated codices and used their advanced astronomical knowledge to improve Spanish navigation techniques and predict weather patterns for maritime expeditions. However, he was strictly forbidden from acknowledging the indigenous origin of this revolutionary knowledge. When Catholic missionaries demanded access to the confiscated codices for scholarly translation, Spanish officials claimed the texts had been destroyed for containing demonic knowledge. Internal correspondence revealed that the manuscripts were too valuable to destroy, and had been transferred to the Royal Observatory in Madrid for continued secret study. The pattern continues today. Modern attempts to locate the stolen Mayan codices in Spanish archives are consistently blocked by officials claiming such documents were destroyed centuries ago. However, occasional references to Mayan astronomical data in Spanish historical records suggest the knowledge continues being used while remaining inaccessible to legitimate scholars. This systematic theft represents more than colonial exploitation. It demonstrates how advanced indigenous knowledge has been deliberately erased from historical records to maintain narratives about European intellectual superiority while secretly benefiting from the stolen discoveries. The evidence is overwhelming. Throughout history, the most revolutionary human knowledge hasn't been lost through accident or natural disaster. It's been systematically stolen by institutions that recognized certain discoveries were too valuable or too dangerous to remain in public hands. These thefts haven't just deprived us of individual texts or discoveries. They've artificially constrained human intellectual development by ensuring that breakthrough knowledge remains accessible only to those with the power to suppress it. The stolen secrets that could transform our world continue gathering dust in classified vaults, while humanity struggles with problems that were solved centuries or millennia ago. The Tibetan Knowledge Raid. High in the mountains of Tibet, within monasteries that had preserved ancient wisdom for over 1,000 years, lay documents that could fundamentally alter human understanding of consciousness itself. These weren't religious texts in the conventional sense. They were instruction manuals for developing capabilities that Western science insisted were impossible. In 1959, as Chinese forces swept across Tibet under the banner of liberation, a parallel operation unfolded in the shadows. Military units conducted systematic raids on specific monasteries, but they weren't simply destroying religious sites. They were executing a carefully planned extraction of manuscripts, documenting techniques for consciousness manipulation, remote viewing, and human potential enhancement that could provide unprecedented military advantages. Chinese intelligence had spent years identifying which monasteries housed the most valuable consciousness research. Their targets included detailed meditation protocols for controlling autonomic functions, manipulating body temperature in extreme conditions, and developing psychic abilities that could revolutionize espionage and psychological warfare operations. The stolen texts contained step-by-step instructions for achieving states of consciousness that enabled practitioners to project awareness outside their physical bodies, maintain consciousness during clinical death, and develop telepathic communication capabilities. These weren't mystical fantasies. They were practical training manuals refined through centuries of systematic experimentation. Among the most significant confiscated documents was the Consciousness Transfer Manual, which described techniques for maintaining awareness during the death process and projecting consciousness across vast distances. Chinese officials recognized that mastering such capabilities could provide extraordinary advantages in survival training and intelligence-gathering operations. The medical manuscripts seized from Tibetan libraries documented healing techniques operating through consciousness manipulation rather than pharmaceutical intervention. These texts describe methods for healing injuries, curing diseases, and extending lifespan through mental practices that could revolutionize medical understanding of the mind-body relationship. Chinese forces used captured Tibetan monks as translators to identify the most valuable manuscripts before imprisoning or eliminating them to prevent knowledge transfer to Western intelligence agencies. The operation ensured exclusive Chinese access to advanced consciousness techniques while eliminating the possibility of their use against Chinese interests. The extracted manuscripts were transported to classified research facilities, where Chinese scientists attempted to reverse engineer the consciousness manipulation techniques for military applications. However, many practices required spiritual preparation and cultural context that couldn't be replicated in laboratory settings, limiting their practical implementation. The Native American text theft. Between 1870 and 1920, a different kind of conquest unfolded across North America. Federal agents and Christian missionaries systematically confiscated sacred texts and oral histories from Native American tribes, claiming preservation for anthropological study. The reality was far more calculating. They were targeting specific knowledge about natural resources, agricultural innovations, and pharmaceutical discoveries that could generate enormous commercial profits. Recently declassified Bureau of Indian Affairs documents reveal the true scope of this intellectual theft. The operation specifically targeted tribal knowledge that could guide resource extraction, improve agricultural productivity, and advance pharmaceutical development while providing legal justification for seizing lands containing valuable materials. The stolen texts included detailed geological maps showing mineral deposits, oil reserves, and precious metal locations that tribes had discovered through generations of environmental observation. Federal agents recognized this knowledge could revolutionize resource extraction operations while justifying territorial seizures based on economic potential rather than legal rights. Among the confiscated materials were agricultural manuals describing crop rotation techniques, soil enhancement methods, and plant breeding programs that had enabled sustainable food production in challenging environments. Government agricultural specialists secretly studied these methods and adapted them for commercial farming, while crediting them as modern innovations developed through scientific research. The pharmaceutical knowledge proved most valuable of all. Native American texts documented the medicinal properties of thousands of plant species, detailed preparation methods for natural medicines, and treatment protocols for diseases that conventional medicine considered incurable. Pharmaceutical companies gained access to this research through government contractors and developed patented drugs based on traditional remedies while eliminating references to their indigenous origins. Weather prediction methods were systematically confiscated, including techniques for forecasting seasonal patterns, predicting natural disasters, and understanding long-term climate cycles through environmental observation. The National Weather Service incorporated many of these methods into their forecasting systems while maintaining narratives about scientific advancement through technological innovation. The spiritual texts contain detailed descriptions of consciousness, altering practices, healing ceremonies, and techniques for developing enhanced sensory awareness that government researchers recognized as potentially valuable for military and intelligence applications. These manuscripts were transferred to classified programs studying human potential enhancement. When tribal leaders demanded the return of their confiscated knowledge, federal officials claimed the materials had been donated to universities for scholarly preservation. Internal documents revealed that the most valuable manuscripts had been classified and transferred to government research facilities where their contents were studied for commercial and military applications. The Egyptian medical conspiracy. In the 1920s, pharmaceutical executives recognized a looming threat to their emerging industry. Archaeological discoveries in Egypt were revealing medical papyri containing pharmaceutical formulations and surgical procedures that exceeded contemporary treatments in both effectiveness and safety. These ancient texts represented billions of dollars in potential lost profits if they became publicly available. Pharmaceutical companies began financing archaeological expeditions with specific objectives. They weren't seeking cultural artifacts for museums. They were conducting targeted extraction operations designed to locate and confiscate medical papyri that could threaten modern drug patents and medical monopolies. The targeted documents included the complete Edwin Smith surgical papyrus, containing surgical procedures that exceeded modern techniques in precision and patient outcomes, and the Ebers papyrus, documenting pharmaceutical formulations using natural ingredients that could cure diseases considered incurable by 20th century medicine. Company representatives worked directly with archaeologists to identify and extract specific medical texts while leaving culturally interesting but commercially irrelevant materials for public display. The operation maintained the appearance of legitimate archaeological research while ensuring potentially competitive medical knowledge would be suppressed. Among the stolen texts was the Pregnancy and Childbirth Manual, describing natural methods for ensuring healthy pregnancies, preventing birth defects, and reducing maternal mortality that were far more effective than contemporary obstetric practices. Pharmaceutical executives understood that such knowledge could eliminate demand for expensive prenatal medications and medical interventions. The confiscated papyri documented the use of common plants and minerals for treating cancer, heart disease, and neurological disorders with success rates exceeding modern pharmaceutical treatments. Industry leaders realized that public access to these formulations could destroy patent-protected drug markets worth billions of dollars. Egyptian authorities received substantial bribes to overlook the systematic theft, while the most valuable medical texts were shipped to private research facilities in Europe and America. Pharmaceutical companies reverse-engineered the ancient formulations and developed synthetic versions that could be patented as modern innovations. When academic scholars requested access to complete collections of ancient Egyptian medical knowledge, they were informed that many texts had been lost or damaged during excavation. Museum collections received carefully edited versions omitting the most effective therapeutic information while preserving culturally interesting content. The suppression intensified when independent researchers began recognizing the sophisticated pharmacological knowledge demonstrated in surviving Egyptian medical texts. Pharmaceutical lobbying prevented funding for research that might validate ancient treatments and threaten modern drug development paradigms. The Sumerian math tablets. During the 1930s, archaeologists working in Mesopotamia uncovered cuneiform tablets containing mathematical and astronomical knowledge that defied everything historians thought they knew about ancient intellectual capabilities. Rather than celebrating these discoveries, government agencies and private collectors systematically acquired the most significant tablets through legal and illegal means, recognizing their potential to destabilize established academic paradigms. The stolen tablets included mathematical texts describing advanced geometric principles, algebraic formulations, and computational techniques that wouldn't be formally developed until the computer age. Government mathematicians recognized that releasing this knowledge would prove ancient civilizations had achieved intellectual development exceeding contemporary capabilities. Among the confiscated tablets was the Astronomical Calculation series, containing precise calculations of planetary positions, stellar movements, and cosmic cycles demonstrating sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics. The accuracy of these calculations exceeded what should have been possible with available technology, suggesting ancient astronomers possessed advanced observational methods. Private aerospace companies acquired these tablets through government intermediaries and used their contents to guide technological development while concealing their ancient origins. The advanced engineering techniques documented in Sumerian texts incorporated principles unknown to contemporary science, providing competitive advantages worth billions in research and development costs. The tablets also contained historical records documenting advanced pre-flood civilizations possessing technologies exceeding modern capabilities, including energy generation systems, transportation methods, and communication devices operating according to principles not yet understood by contemporary science. When universities attempted to acquire complete collections of Sumerian tablets for academic study, they discovered that the most significant texts had been purchased by private collectors refusing scholarly access. Government agencies claimed national security concerns prevented public examination of certain tablets containing sensitive technical information. The suppression continues today. International attempts to catalog and preserve Sumerian cuneiform tablets have been hampered by the discovery that thousands of the most significant texts have disappeared from archaeological sites and entered private collections, where they remain inaccessible to scholarly examination. These systematic thefts reveal a disturbing pattern that continues shaping human intellectual development. The most revolutionary discoveries aren't lost through accident or natural disaster. They're deliberately acquired by institutions recognizing that certain knowledge threatens existing power structures and economic interests. The evidence accumulates with each case we examine. Advanced ancient knowledge exists, but it remains locked away in classified facilities and private collections, while humanity struggles with challenges that were solved millennia ago. The theft of our intellectual heritage hasn't just deprived us of individual discoveries. It's artificially constrained human progress by ensuring breakthrough knowledge serves only those powerful enough to suppress it. The Alchemy Archive arrest. When Nazi forces swept across Europe during World War II, their objectives extended far beyond territorial conquest. Hidden within their broader military campaigns was a sophisticated intellectual theft operation, targeting medieval alchemical manuscripts that contained revolutionary chemical formulations and metallurgical techniques. These weren't dusty relics of primitive superstition. They were technical manuals documenting advanced chemical processes that could provide decisive military advantages. Allied intelligence quickly realized what the Nazis were after and launched their own competing operation to acquire the same manuscripts. Both sides recognized that medieval alchemists had developed extraordinary chemical knowledge that modern science couldn't explain or replicate. The race wasn't just for territory or strategic resources. It was for scientific secrets that could reshape warfare itself. The targeted manuscripts included the complete works of medieval masters who had documented advanced chemical processes for transmuting metals, creating revolutionary alloys, and generating energy through reactions that defied contemporary chemical understanding. Military scientists on both sides understood that these techniques could transform weapons development and industrial manufacturing. Among the most coveted texts was the Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegistus, containing encoded instructions for manipulating atomic structure through chemical processes that appeared to achieve limited nuclear transmutation using medieval technology. Allied researchers realized that decoding these techniques could advance nuclear research while providing alternative approaches to atomic energy development. The confiscated manuscripts documented methods for creating substances with properties exceeding modern materials science. These included metals lighter than aluminum, yet stronger than steel, chemical compounds capable of storing enormous energy amounts, and materials exhibiting properties resembling modern superconductors. Nazi researchers had made significant progress decoding alchemical formulations and developing prototype technologies based on medieval texts before their defeat. Allied forces captured both the researchers and their source materials, continuing development in classified programs while publicly dismissing alchemy as medieval superstition. The most revolutionary stolen knowledge involved energy generation techniques using chemical processes to extract power from materials in ways conventional chemistry considered impossible. These methods appeared to access energy sources that modern physics hadn't identified, suggesting medieval alchemists had discovered fundamental principles remaining unknown to contemporary science. When academic historians attempted studying medieval alchemy after the war, they found that the most significant manuscripts had been removed from library collections and transferred to classified government research facilities. Universities received microfilm copies omitting technical diagrams and detailed formulations. The Aboriginal Dream Raid. Between 1950 and 1980, Australian government anthropologists conducted systematic raids on Aboriginal sacred sites with a mission that extended far beyond cultural preservation. They were confiscating traditional knowledge about geological processes, weather prediction, and navigation techniques that had enabled indigenous peoples to thrive in challenging environments for over 50,000 years. The stolen knowledge was immediately transferred to mining companies, meteorological services, and geological surveys while being suppressed from public awareness to maintain narratives about primitive indigenous cultures. The operation represented one of the most comprehensive thefts of environmental science in modern history. The confiscated materials included detailed maps of underground water sources, mineral deposits, and geological formations that Aboriginal peoples had documented through millennia of environmental observation. Mining companies recognized this knowledge could revolutionize resource extraction operations while dramatically reducing exploration costs and environmental impact. Among the stolen information were weather prediction techniques enabling Aboriginal peoples to forecast seasonal patterns, predict droughts and floods, and understand long-term climate cycles through environmental observation that exceeded contemporary meteorological capabilities. The Bureau of Meteorology incorporated many of these methods while eliminating references to their indigenous origins. The most valuable stolen knowledge involved navigation techniques enabling Aboriginal peoples to traverse vast distances using star positions, geological landmarks, and environmental cues that created a positioning system more accurate than early European navigation methods. Military applications of this knowledge were immediately classified to prevent hostile nations accessing superior navigation techniques. Aboriginal astronomical knowledge was systematically confiscated, including detailed observations of stellar movements, planetary cycles, and cosmic events recorded in oral traditions and ceremonial objects for thousands of years. This knowledge provided insights into long-term astronomical patterns that could enhance satellite navigation and space exploration programs. The medical knowledge stolen from Aboriginal communities included sophisticated understanding of plant pharmaceuticals, healing techniques, and diagnostic methods that had enabled indigenous peoples to maintain health in challenging environments without access to conventional medicine. Pharmaceutical companies gained access to this research through government intermediaries. When Aboriginal communities demanded the return of their confiscated knowledge, government officials claimed the information had been donated for scientific preservation. Internal documents revealed that the most valuable knowledge had been classified and transferred to commercial research facilities, where it continues generating profits while being denied to its original creators. The Greek manuscript heist. During World War II, Nazi forces conducted systematic raids on Greek libraries and monasteries, with objectives that transcended simple cultural destruction. They were hunting for ancient manuscripts containing advanced mathematical, engineering, and scientific knowledge that could provide technological advantages in their war effort. However, when Allied forces defeated Germany, they faced a crucial decision. Rather than returning the stolen texts to Greece, they distributed them among Allied intelligence agencies who recognized their immense value for advancing post-war technological development. The theft continued under new management. The targeted manuscripts included complete works of ancient Greek mathematicians and engineers, whose texts contained theoretical principles and practical applications exceeding contemporary understanding. Nazi scientists had identified specific manuscripts that could advance weapons development, cryptography, and technological research. Among the stolen texts was the complete Archimedes palimpsest, containing mathematical formulations for calculating infinite series, geometric principles for advanced engineering, and mechanical designs for automated systems centuries ahead of available technology. Allied researchers realized these discoveries could accelerate post-war technological development. The confiscated manuscripts documented advanced optical principles used in ancient Greek theaters and temples that enabled perfect acoustic transmission and visual effects through precise geometric calculations. Military researchers recognized these techniques could improve communication systems and surveillance technology. The most valuable stolen knowledge involved Greek fire formulations and advanced metallurgy techniques that ancient Greeks had developed for military applications. Allied chemical researchers reverse-engineered these processes and incorporated them into modern weapons development while concealing their ancient origins. When Greek authorities demanded the return of their stolen manuscripts after the war, Allied officials claimed the texts had been destroyed during combat or were too damaged for return. Classified documents revealed that the manuscripts had been distributed among research facilities in Britain, America, and other Allied nations. The suppression continued when academic institutions attempted studying ancient Greek scientific achievements and found that the most significant manuscripts were no longer available for scholarly examination. University collections received carefully edited copies omitting technical content while preserving culturally interesting material. International efforts to catalog and preserve Greek manuscripts revealed that thousands of the most scientifically significant texts had disappeared from European libraries during the war and never been recovered. The pattern suggested systematic targeting of specific categories of knowledge, rather than random wartime destruction. Modern attempts to access the stolen Greek manuscripts through diplomatic channels remain unsuccessful, with officials claiming such documents either were destroyed during the war or are held by private collectors who cannot be compelled to provide access. The continuing use of ancient Greek mathematical and engineering principles in modern technology suggests the stolen manuscripts remain accessible to classified research programs while being denied to scholars who could advance public understanding. The evidence becomes overwhelming with each case we examine. These weren't random acts of wartime destruction or cultural vandalism. They were calculated operations designed to acquire specific knowledge while ensuring it remained inaccessible to broader humanity. The pattern repeats across centuries and continents because the motivation remains constant. Powerful institutions understand that knowledge is the ultimate source of power and control. They recognize that certain discoveries could destabilize existing hierarchies, challenge official narratives, and provide capabilities that would fundamentally alter the balance of global influence. Rather than allowing such knowledge to benefit all humanity, they choose to hoard it while maintaining public ignorance. The systematic nature of these thefts reveals something even more disturbing about human intellectual development. We haven't progressed through natural evolution of understanding. Our advancement has been artificially controlled and constrained by those who determine which knowledge serves their interests and which threatens their authority. Every breakthrough that could eliminate scarcity, cure disease, provide unlimited energy, or reveal uncomfortable historical truths gets buried in classified vaults while humanity continues struggling with problems that were solved long ago. The greatest tragedy isn't that this knowledge was lost. It's that it was deliberately hidden to preserve power structures built on artificial limitation and controlled dependence. The stolen secrets that could transform our world continue gathering dust, while those who possess them maintain their advantages through scarcity and suppression. But the evidence of these thefts proves something revolutionary. The knowledge exists. The solutions are real. And somewhere in those classified facilities and private collections lie the keys to unlocking human potential that has been systematically denied to us for centuries. What emerges from these documented cases isn't just a pattern of theft, but a systematic campaign to control human intellectual evolution itself. The institutions responsible for these operations understood something that most people never consider. Knowledge isn't just information. It's power in its most concentrated form, and certain discoveries pose existential threats to the structures that govern our world. Consider the implications of what we've uncovered. Every major library, monastery, and knowledge repository throughout history has been targeted by coordinated extraction operations. The thieves weren't common criminals motivated by greed. They were intelligence operatives, corporate executives, and government agents executing carefully planned missions to acquire specific types of dangerous knowledge. The sophistication of these operations reveals long-term strategic thinking that spans generations. Vatican agents didn't randomly raid Byzantine libraries. They spent decades identifying which manuscripts contained the greatest threats to religious authority. Pharmaceutical executives didn't stumble upon valuable Egyptian papyri. They deliberately financed expeditions to locate and confiscate medical knowledge that could bankrupt their industry. This level of coordination suggests something even more disturbing. These weren't isolated incidents carried out by independent actors. They represent components of a broader system designed to maintain intellectual control over human development. The same patterns repeat across different centuries, continents, and civilizations, because they're following established protocols for managing dangerous knowledge. The cover stories used to explain these thefts follow predictable templates. Religious zealots destroyed the texts. Wartime chaos caused accidental loss. Natural disasters eliminated the evidence. Cultural preservation required temporary relocation. Every excuse serves the same function. It provides plausible explanations for why humanity's greatest intellectual treasures have vanished while concealing the systematic nature of their acquisition. But the evidence of ongoing exploitation proves these texts weren't destroyed. They were redistributed to classified facilities where their contents continue benefiting those with access while being denied to everyone else. Ancient navigation techniques improve military systems. Indigenous medical knowledge becomes patented pharmaceuticals. Advanced mathematical principles guide technological development, all while maintaining public narratives about primitive historical civilizations and linear intellectual progress. The psychological impact of these thefts extends far beyond the loss of individual discoveries. They've fundamentally distorted our understanding of human capability and historical development. We've been conditioned to believe that advanced knowledge is a recent achievement, that ancient peoples were primitive, and that intellectual progress follows predictable evolutionary patterns. If you learned something from this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Don't keep these discoveries as a secret to yourself. Until next time, when we find out how.